Hello, this time we're back again. You can try some lip reading. You can see a little downwind surf, a ferry, and some traffic. So this one all starts, this is a November day, so this has been sitting around a wee while. We are leaving from Ashlet Creek because the wind was a southeasterly, which doesn't actually happen very often around here, which meant we can't do a downwind because there's no wind along the Solent and there's no surf along our end of the Solent. So this was a chance to go from Ashlet straight across Southampton Water and up the Hamble River, which we've often talked about, hadn't done before. So here it is, this is what we saw. If you don't know Southampton Water, it's quite a busy stretch of water. You've got a lot of traffic going up there, there's a lot of ferries, there's a container terminal at the top end of the river on the side, and behind us are the tanker, the tugboats and the oil terminal, which is part of the Fawley refinery. But with this southeasterly wind, that actually put the wind coming straight up the channel. We're crossing that channel, where wind and tide are together, but you still had a bit of a swell going up the river, which you don't often see there either. So that's a red funnel ferry over the shoulder, Captain Chris. And we're now coming across to the far side of the Southampton Water, which then takes you into the Hamble River itself. So at this point we start to turn further north rather than east-west across, putting us in line with the swell and gives the chance for a little surf, of course. Of course, this isn't Hawaii, so don't expect to be dazzled, but it was pretty cool surfing up Southampton Water. I don't do that often. Got quite a long ride out of it too, and ended up a wee way ahead of Captain. So one of the first sites as you come into the Hamble River is the training college, the Naval Training College, which of course is where Chris became Captain Chris. And the gantries off to the side are all about training for lifeboats, etc. And this is where the lip reading section came from. What he was actually describing was how he was being told to get his head down during fire drills. From all accounts, the instructors were quite persuasive. It was actually really interesting listening to Chris's stories from here. Unfortunately, the camera audio was a bit rubbish, so I had to talk straight over it all, and I can't remember all the details. Chris doesn't live near me, so he's not so convenient to pop down and join us for a microphone session. So gossiping complete. While we merrily drift along the channel and block everyone's way, we thought we'd best get a move on, get up the river and have a look what else we see. Once you get into the river, it's largely leisure boats. There's not a lot of activity beyond that, but it's very scenic, and quite evidently in the video it was a lovely day, albeit November. It wasn't warm, but gorgeous day. It's like half a family out for a little sail. Everyone's all very chatty. This was one of the points that we've earmarked that could be useful for bringing other people. You can put in then and then avoid the crossing of the Southampton Water, so there's parking, there's access to the water, there's even a pub. So at some point in the future we'll probably pop back there with other people that aren't so keen to dice with death across the channel in front of the ferries. There's a few bridges as you go up the river. This one's one of the road bridges. I forget what it's called. This is the rail bridge. And you had a quick glimpse there, though coming up closer now is the M27, the main motorway. So if you're one of the lucky people that drives across that each day, this is what it looks like underneath, in case you care. Really, the M27 bridge is the last part of almost civilization. Soon after that you're out into open water, there's woodland. We had some lovely autumn colours to look at. So clearly here, very well sheltered from the wind. So from the point of view of coming up the river with people that aren't so keen to dodge the traffic and get involved with the more open water, this is actually a really good place to go and do some miles in sheltered water.
We've covered right on 6 nautical miles from Ashford Creek. Timing wise, you don't really want wind over tide to cross Southampton Water again, because that's going to get quite rough from what we saw, along with loads of traffic. So the wind's forecast to pick up. Let's just read this sign. No camping, no fires, no mooring, no landing. Mine, mine, mine. So, result is, we have probably an hour and a half to the slack in Southampton Water. If we turn around now with a lazy paddle, should be crossing Southampton Water around the slack before the wind against tide really starts.
So next up we came across what I presume is a kayak club. The usual banter, apparently they'd left from Warsash, so they'd missed out the crossing over Southampton Water. Got a bit of a yarn about boats as they go by, very exciting. If you recognise yourself in there, feel free to get in touch. So by now Chris and I are starting to make our way back down the river. As mentioned, the idea really was to beat the point where the tide turns, you get wind over tide. We didn't want the extra chop and splosh mixed with all the traffic. It could get a little bit too much fun across Southampton Water. There are lots of people out and about on the water, which is really great to see. Canoes, kayaks, stand-up boards, we saw the whole lot. For somewhere so close to the city and to built-up areas, it's great to see. Back under the motorway. And just to prove it's a rail bridge, with a little Toy Town train, in case anyone was doubting. The last road bridge, with the forgotten name. Stand-up boards across the other side. Johnny Sailor pub, apparently really nice. I haven't tested it, but it does look like one that is well worth a go. It looks as though it's quite accessible to actually paddle straight up to it. Whether they're willing to accept you that way is another thing, but maybe we'll have to try that someday. One of the bigger boats, I'm sure he's wishing he had a kayak instead. And of course this jolly sailor seems to have had a bit of kerfuffle with his furling, which looks as though it's probably working out costly. It run itself ragged into little ribbons. Oops. So we're now coming back past the college and give our first glimpse back across the Southampton Water. The tank is still parked up there, and we're back out into the open. So at this point it was probably close to the slack tide, so it was still fairly benign, but I think if we had been a little bit later, if we'd gone up to the pub for instance at the top of the Hamble, we would have been coming down here at least an hour later, and I think the conditions would have been quite different, a bit less friendly. So we're working our way across. I'm looking off to my right because I can see the Red Funnel ferry, which is visible now, but it was visible quite a long time before that. Timing wise, it became clear that we were heading for a little head to head, so we've now turned head to wind, which gives us calmer conditions while the ferry just runs past us. And once it's clear that he's well past, I shouted off to Chris, alright, we're clear of him. We turn back on course and we head across the gap again. Can't often get all romantic about a ferry, but it does look quite cool going through the sun. Maybe I need to get out more. There are fast ferries use this as well, which probably not quite so effortless to get around. So a bit of sailing traffic as well. Again, the 360 makes things look quite far away, but it was all actually quite close quarters here. So he's wiggling through the gap between us and the tugs. Good chance to show off the 360 panel round. Captain Chris grabbing himself a little wave as we come back into Ashlet Creek, visible behind. We've left the refinery behind, the old tide mill, and we are now back to the start point in Ashlet Creek. I've just come back today from an overnighter on the beach with Captain Chris and Duncan, so I'll get to work on that soon. I've got an epic trip coming up in September. We'll tell you more about that in the next video. So stay with us, have a look at some of the earlier adventures and watch out for September's mission. So on the GPS, this is where we were, north of the Isle of Wight, crossing Southampton Water, leaving from Ashlet Creek near Fawley where the refinery is, and heading across Southampton Water up the Hamble River, not quite to the end. We were maybe a mile or two short of furthest reach. That's all for now, keep watching.